Welcome to Adds Power. In this video we bleed the brakes on my Project A2, now known as Dara. Can't wait to get this thing running properly. What an absolute honey. Before we get on to anything in this video, I just thought I'd address the Dara name because it has been a subject of some debate as to why this thing's called Dara, but I'll give you a clue. Just here. And I'll leave it there. You can make your mind up on what that is and why, but he's called Dara. It suits him well. He's a cheeky little chappy, and we love him. So we're going to do the brakes today, and I've got one of these. So this is a Sealy brake and clutch bleeding system. Essentially it's a big reservoir. Take that cap off and you fill the thing up with brake fluid, and then you pressurise this, and then you see this little gauge. I usually take that up to about 20 psi, and then when you crack off the bleed nipples on each caliper, the fluid is then allowed to come through this pipe. This doodah here screws onto the brake reservoir on the vehicle and the fluid comes out. So the fluid reservoir's here. So you unscrew this and screw the pressure bleeder on. And then here's a brake nipple here. Try and get around the back. See that? I've already taken the cap off. That's on the caliper. So you crack that off with a spanner, special brake nipple spanner. And the brake fluid just comes out. So I've already done this, and I did film a video on the first attempt, but when I drove the car, I found, you may remember, I'd replaced one of the calipers. So it was this side. Shut this door. So I'd replaced this caliper, and that resolved the issue with the brake getting really hot. But I then found when I started driving the car that this caliper was slightly binding, so I replaced this one. So that's 60 quid of calipers, but that's resolved the problem, binding. But when I drove the car, there's just a bit of too much travel in the brake pedal. You've got a good inch before anything really happens, which just isn't right. You want the brakes to be nice and firm. So we're going to do it again today. So you'll follow me, redo this film again, because frankly the original wasn't that good. And I'll let you know how it goes. So let's get to it. Right, so I've got the bleeder attached to the reservoir. I won't put this cap here because last time I did that it fell into the depths of the engine bay and I had to take the under tray off. So it's attached up. What you do then is pressurise this. Actually, did I see any fluid come up? What I wasn't doing there was watching for the fluid to come up. There we go. So what I've pressed there is the valve to release the pressure. So you can see the fluid in there now. So pressurise it up. And what I've done in this, I've actually put in about 1.5 litres of brake fluid, because what you don't want to do is for this to run dry, because you're then just forcing air through the system, which is the opposite of what you want to do. So that's at just over 20 psi now, so I'm happy with that. So what you then do is one I prepared earlier. Just angle you down. If the tripod will let me, there we go. So you see I've got a little catch tank, and you attach this to the bleed nipple, which I'm just going to now try and release. That should come apart fairly easily because I released this, I only did these a couple of weeks ago. There we go, so that's come off fairly easily. And what you do is put this on, there's a clear pipe, so you release the nipple and you just watch the fluid go through, and you're just looking for air. So immediately I've seen an air bubble there, so there was air in this system, and that's why the brakes felt spongy. Yeah, there's a couple of little air bubbles coming through, so definitely worth doing. Any air in this system is compressible, and you just don't want, you want it to be absolutely solid. You want the connection between the pedal and the pads to be completely hydraulic, no air. So the idea of this is not only to get the air out, but to refresh the fluid. The fluid does degrade over time. It accrues. It can kind of pick up water, and you just want nice clean fluid in the system. It stops corrosion and all that bad stuff. So I'm just going to keep the thing open, and you just basically keep the nipple open until you see a change of colour in the fluid, and that tells you that you've got clean fluid coming through. Now obviously, because I did this a couple of weeks ago, it's all clean, but so that's all right. So I'm not seeing any bubbles coming through now, so I'm just going to tighten off that nipple. All right, let's do them fairly tight, not too tight, because you don't want to strip them. There we go. So that's the first one done. And you just put this little cap on, so you don't want that going. And then what I do, I like to do this in diagonals. So I've done the front left, and now you do the rear right, because it's a diagonal system. And we'll do the rear caliper. So now it's the rear caliper, and unfortunately I couldn't get to it with the wheel in place, which is annoying because that means jacking the car up and all that stuff, but we've now got to it. The nipple's just on the back, so I'm just going to crack it off. And you see, I'll show you another one, these spanners, let's get it to focus, they're more, the hex goes further round, so it just gives more purchase on the hex of the nipple. You don't want to round those things off, it basically writes off the caliper, unless you can pry them off with something, but this is what I'm using. So you then so I've just loosened that off, put the thing over the end, the pipe, and then just release it. And in theory, there you go. So you see the fluid starting to come through. So I'm just releasing that, but this nipple, perhaps it's because these are aftermarket brakes, there's barely any flow coming through, so I'm just going to turn it a bit further. So that's now firmly, fluid's coming through there nicely. There's no air coming through at the moment. You can't quite see that, you can just about see. So it may be there's air somewhere in the pipework of the car, so I'm just going to leave it open for a while. You can see how discoloured this disc got, the thing binding. These Ica discs aren't, because they haven't got any surface treatment on them, sort of on the non-friction plate bit, they're a bit, I'm not too happy with the finish, they look kind of scruffy. The Paget's have a zinc plate finish on them so they don't rust. So I don't think I'll get these again, but they were cheap. They do the job, but... So I'm just leaving this open. Oh, here we go. One little bubble come through. Yeah, getting a few little bubbles coming through now. There we go, yeah, a few coming through. There we go, so there was air, you see that, might just see that. So there was air in this system. And you know, whilst the car was drivable, it just doesn't inspire confidence. Just the first inch of travel on the pedal, it was just basically nothing. It was braking, but very slightly. When I did my classic Mini recently, I was at this, I think I must have bled it about 5 times, but that was a complete, you know, I'd rebuilt the master cylinder, the thing had been completely dry for about 6 months, so it took a lot of bleeding to get all the air out. There's not a lot more coming through now. So I'm gonna say that's bled. Sometimes I sort of get a bit. You sort of think, oh, have I introduced air when I tightened up the nipple? So sometimes, I don't know. It's almost like OCD, isn't it? You just want to double check. It's a bit of a pig, this car, to get at. Come on, you. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, we'll say we're happy with that. The cool thing about these systems, these kind of constantly pressurized systems, is if you're doing it with a brake pedal and your mate's pressing the brake, sometimes when they release the brake, they can pull air back in. So these systems, because they keep it constantly pressurized, you never get that. Just make sure that's nice and tight. There we go. So that's done. So we'll do the other side. Okay, so we're now doing the front, the opposite side. Let's just release that kind of nipple. See the fluid start to come through. So what we're looking for there is bubbles. So can't see any coming through yet, but we'll just leave the brake nipple open. See these cool winter tyres, really nice. Came with the car, Goodyear winter grips. I think I can't quite get my head around, but these are going to be ace when it gets snowy. Can't wait. I can't see anything coming through at the moment, no bubbles. Now, given this is the closest wheel to the master cylinder, this is usually the easiest to bleed. I'm just going to leave it open. If there's any bubbles in this system, they should come through, but nothing coming through. You see the bottle starting to fill up now. So it's just one stream of fluid, so I'm happy with that. I don't think there's any air in that. So just tighten it up, righty-tighty. Not too tight, just enough. And then 10mm this one, I think it's 11. I just like to make sure with brakes. Yeah, that's all right. You don't mess about with brakes. There we go. So the cover's back on. Let's do the back wheel. Right, so the final wheel. Look at that fresh caliper, just lovely. So got the calipers 30 quid off eBay each, and they're not bad, you know. They do the job. What more do you want? I'm just going to loosen that. That's already, because I've already done this recently. It's all still nice and free. There we go. Right. So get the old bottle on again. Let's see what happens. So what we're looking for here is bubbles. Can you see that? You can see that. That's all clear now. But we've already seen a couple of bubbles come through this system, but given this is the back left wheel, so the furthest from the reservoir. Oh, there's one. See that go down? There we go. So there's a bubble there. So it may have been just those little small bubbles on the front and then one here have been enough that I've been getting that spongy. That's been enough to give me that spongy feel. You know, only slight, but you know, I use this car. Most of my driving is on the motorway, and you know, this car, when you're sat at 70, if you need to brake suddenly, okay, it would stop. You can activate the ABS, but it just didn't feel nice. You knew it would. It was there, but in your mind, you just want, the minute you press that pedal, you want it firm. So I'm just going to keep this open for a little while. But the car's been running really well. I'm still working during the lockdown, but I can't do a video because it's not an essential journey. So I've only been using it on essential journeys to work. But it sits at 70, happy as Larry. It's fairly short geared, so it's spinning, I think it's like 2,500 RPM, which is quite high for a diesel, but it's quite quiet. You wouldn't really, it doesn't feel laboured, and it's right in the torque band, so when you put your foot down, it scoots along. I think because of the low aerodynamics, the low drag coefficient on this as well, it just scoots along. It really is surprisingly quick. So we'll keep this bleed nipple open. No air's coming through now, so it may have been just those small bubbles been enough in this car to upset it. Some people clip this over the end, but I just tend to hold it firm. So this is riveting filming, but you know, this is life. This is ad power. This is adds power. This is what happens in real life. So there's nothing coming through there. I mean, I could sit here all day. Look at this. Apparently these are an absolute menace to take off because all the bolts are rusted on, so I'm just going to leave that. If this car turns into a keeper, I might do it, but right now it's just about hanging on, so I'll leave it. It's not going to fail the MOT on that. Famous last words. Right, I'm going to leave that because patience. Fail. He goes, spilling brake fluid everywhere. Clean that up. Yeah, there's now coming through. So just tighten off the nipple. There we go, not too tight, just enough that it inspires confidence. And then cap on. So there you go. So that's bleeding the brakes. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Let me know in the comments. But really enjoying this little car. Going to keep on using it just to pootle to work and back, but lovely little thing. I can't wait to take you out for a drive with me soon. I'm not going to wait to clean the thing. I'm just going to take you for a road test as it is because I'm just too excited. So we'll do a road test once lockdown's over, and we'll do a 0 to 60 and you'll hear this 3-cylinder sing. So until then, all the best and see you soon.